Hey there, everybody. My name's Ray.
And I'm Ray's Figment of Imagination.
Welcome back to Ray's Art Adventure.
Episode 4, I think.
Yes, it's episode 4 as we continue the tradition of Ray's Art Adventure YouTube channel onto the Ramblin Ray channel.
What? I'm a little confused. I thought Ramblin Ray was for the A-Frame Adventure.
Well, it was, but we did that, and so now we're on to some new adventures.
Oh, okay. So who's the adorable little munchkin?
That is my newly adopted grandson, Corbin.
He's a handsome little fellow.
Thanks.
Looks nothing like you.
Thanks. Anyway, in celebration of his adoption, we're going to make a banner with his name on it today.
Awesome.
Yeah, and his name means Corbin, a blessing from God, dedicated back to God.
Let's do it.
Okay, here we are in Adobe Illustrator, and as you notice here, I've got a background grid in place, and I've made this grid 6 inches here across the whole image area here so that I can see our fabric size. And so I did choose a piece of fabric that was this size here, which is the 18 inches wide by 60 inches tall. Okay, but I just want to show you some of the designs that I've been working on as I've got started here. This is really the first one I was working on, and I thought I might make a long banner down here, as you can see. So I wasn't totally determined on the size. I knew the general proportions, what I wanted to do. And then my son-in-law actually said something about maybe doing it vertically, which I kind of had an idea to do it vertically as well. But I ended up finding a piece of fabric that was already cut, and it was a remnant piece. I'm trying to zoom out here. And it was this 18 by 60. So that seemed like a good size for the layout. What I've got here is two different typefaces that I tried to use just to see which I'd like. So I set this up, and this is actually coiled unchal. And I always used to think it was unseal, but it's actually unchal.
Are you sure that's how you pronounce it?
Well, let's see.
Unchal.
Huh.
Unchal.
Huh.
Unchal.
Huh.
Unchal.
All right, come on, let's get going.
Unchal.
Okay, I just want to show you here. I wanted the typeface to be calligraphy of some kind, and I wanted maybe to have the feeling of like Middle Eastern, kind of that maybe a little Arabic type of feel to it. So these are just two of the choices I was working with, and this typeface is Unchal Bold, and Kells. So it's a little bit different variety, but I wanted maybe something a little bit more, I guess, fun, a little more picturesque. So this is the one I chose, which was, again, the coiled unchal. And you can see here, let me see what size this is. So this ended up being quite large. Again, these squares are 6 inches by 6 inches. So the typeface here is showing at actually 835 points. So it's a pretty good sized typeface. So I set it out all in caps coming across. Music's getting loud for the main part of the name.
Yes.
And then
it is.
I went down here and, of course, did a return and then had this be smaller type size here, like 265. So I just messed around with the design, and you can do this if you don't have Illustrator. You can do it in Word. You can do it in some other graphic layout programs. There's actually free ones, I'm sure, online that you can use as well.
Free? What are you, cheap?
No, frugal.
Cheap.
I want to make every part of my project easier. So this gives me a chance to work on the design ahead of time to explore ideas before I actually get to using the fabric. So I had, again, some different typefaces, all right, different positionings, lower, and then finally settling on this one here. And so in this case, what I did is I actually have, this is one set of type over here with a return after each letter, okay? And then this is actually another typeface, another section of the type here with the return. So they're two separate parts to the image here. That way I can move them around and adjust it as I go. I think that's it, so let's get started here.
Woohoo, let's get painting.
Patience, grasshopper.
Who was that, Yoda?
No, it's from Kung Fu. Okay, one more thing I'd like to mention before we get started is these typefaces, some typefaces have an upper and lower case to them. Some have alternate letters you can use. For instance, on God here, you could actually have a capital G, but in this case, the typeface here, it's under glyphs, okay? Glyphs tell you what actual characters are available on any typeface that you have here. So as you can see, this G, there's only really one G in this whole typeface. Slight variation here, but it's basically, there's no upper and lower case with this typeface. This one on this side, though, if you'll look, this actually has an uppercase here and a lowercase. So some typefaces have a lot of extra characters to them, a full range of different things that you can use. Upcoming here, I'm going to create a capital G, so to speak, since there's actually not one in this typeface. In determining what typeface I wanted to use, I knew I wanted a calligraphy typeface of some kind, and I knew it was Uncial or something similar to that. So I went to this website here called defont.com, which I really like. There's a lot of free fonts on there. You can also purchase fonts through some of the other commercial fonts, but there's a lot of free fonts on there to give you an idea of what you want. And so here I ended up typing in Uncial in the search here, and so these are the different ones that came up. So there's quite a variety here, and this is the one that I actually chose there. And the nice thing about this little website here is you can type in actually what you want it to say, and so it can kind of give you a preview of what it's going to look like. So in this case I have Corbin, so that gave me a good idea ahead of time of which typeface I might want to use, and then I downloaded it.
All right, Master Rayfu, are we actually going to get to painting in this episode or not? Patience you must have, yes. That's it. I'm going to get a snack. Call me when you're ready.
All right, here you can see we have our layout, and I'm using a tape measure to lay out to scale to match the layout on the computer on the fabric, which is like a muslin fabric, has like a little silver thread lining in it. But anyway, I pre-washed it to kind of remove any sizing that might be on the fabric so the paint would stick to it better. Okay, so here we are laying out on our fabric the dimensions for the lines that run across. As you can see, here's the layout that we have. We decided to go with more of a vertical layout, and these letters here end up being about 6 inches, and these about 2 inches over here. So we've got our fabric here, and we're using our tape measure and just kind of laying it out and figuring out where the smaller type goes and then the larger type on the left. And I've got my helper Corbin here. Say hi.
Hi.
Not you. All right, let's get to it.
It's all about the baby.
I sketched the layout lightly on the fabric with an old piece of pastel stick and a pastel pencil in a burnt sienna color. Okay, here we've got our space for the letter A here, and I'm just using a broken off piece of pastel here to mark this out on the fabric.
Because you're too cheap to buy a new
we're
piece?
Just use the A as a guide there.
Hey, leaves more money for Dairy Queen later.
Genius.
And it generally is about a 6-inch kind of area, 6-inch square to start with. And it runs out a little past it on this particular letter. So I'm just lightly kind of roughing this out. It doesn't have to be perfect because we're going to come back in and clean all this off after we do the actual painting. Even though I say here that I wanted to clean up those lines afterward, I actually thought in my mind I would leave some of them to have like a sketchy quality in the background. This is actually probably one of the trickier letters to do. And of course, some artists just like to do this freehand and go right into the actual calligraphy aspect. Since I haven't done a lot of it lately, I like to sketch it out and make sure it's in the right proportion first. Here you can see I have all the large letters of the name on the left side sketched out. And I want to point out the letter A, I actually had to shift that over a little to the right there. I realized after sketching the other letters out that I wanted the A to be a little bit wider. So sketching things out first allows you to make some of those changes with the lighter lines before you dedicate it to the actual paint. Back to the lowercase g that I want to turn into a capital letter G. I actually just sketched it, believe it or not, on a napkin or a paper towel, whatever I had handy, and just kind of got the proportions based on my experience with other typefaces and kind of looking at how they're designed, but just creating a capital G out of that. Again, use whatever you've got, sketch paper, whatever's handy. Doesn't have to be anything fancy. So I do a lot of my work on napkins at restaurants. So whatever's around, that's what you use.
Well, at least it's not toilet paper.
Are you kidding? That's way too valuable these days.
Right?
So as you can see, Hi, Corbin. Okay, so as you can see, I've got a light grid line here, and I put that on 6 inches throughout the layout there that's showing, and that way I can kind of see where things need to go. For instance, the light guidelines going up the middle there are dedicated, so when I go to lay that out on the fabric here, I kind of just find my center point there, and that's where I'll start the lettering, and that way I know that, for instance, the these many letters are on the left side, so it's kind of split at the C there, and then the letters on the right side. So I know that the C is now going to start right in the middle here, and then work my letters out from each side. That kind of keeps it centered. Okay, so we're going to start here with the C in the middle, just kind of lightly indicate where that goes. And working my letters out here. So I've got the A kind of in this area here. All right, and then I'll be working the T and the E and the D. What you want to do is keep the size kind of correct, otherwise you might end up too far off. So I can tell that this puppet needs to be a little bit smaller here, so I'll just adjust it as I go. By the way, I found this pastel pencil, which I'm using now instead of the other thing. More detail, a little easier.
Then your El Cheapo pastel scrap?
Yes. Here's a couple of progression photos that shows your basic guidelines and then the letters being sketched in and then darkened to achieve more of their final outline. Again, the point is to start light and loose with your lines and then refine the lines as you go along. Here you can see the final layout, and as you'll notice, that C I had to alter it quite a bit. So again, starting lighter and then darkening up, and I've kind of, got a lot of lines around there, but it's okay. I'm going to clean that up a little bit. And anyway, you can see down the banner here, everything's laid out, and I like the position of everything. And now it's going to be time to start painting. Before I started painting, I went back and rubbed off a little bit of the extra lines with some rubbing alcohol and a rag, just to kind of take some of that out as it was a little dark around that C. For the actual painting process, I'm using a synthetic sable brush, like a 1-inch, and then I think a number 12 flat, bright brushes. And they worked pretty good. They're Royal and Langnickel, and I actually liked them, but you can use kind of whatever you want. The point is you need kind of a sharp tip and kind of a flat surface so it puts the paint on evenly. And as far as the paint, I tried several different things. I tried some acrylic paint and some ink as well, and ended up deciding finally on black gesso, believe it or not. That was about the best thing. It seemed to fill in and kind of stick to the fabric because I had a little trouble sticking stuff to the fabric. Here you can see in my first test run how the ink just wanted to like skip across the fabric. Even though I washed it, it still seemed to have some type of sizing on there. Just wanted to bead up a little bit.
Okay, I'm going to attempt to do this while in the phone here on the camera. So I've got my acrylic black gesso here, which I'm using. And again, this fabric has been nothing but a problem. It's not wanting to stick on the fabric, so I'd like to make these in smooth strokes. But the truth is I'm going to have to go back and over these and fill them in some, because it's just not going into the fabric. Otherwise, I'd like to have cleaner strokes as I go.
It looks pretty decent.
Yeah, actually, it's worked out pretty good. I mean, I'm just being kind of picky.
You? Really?
Hey, just trying to do my best.
So I'll come back with a smaller brush and touch that up and kind of fill that in again and give it a little more thickness to paint.
Oh, hey, is there any sound? Mic check. Hello? Is this thing on?
Yes, it's on. Just trying to concentrate.
Ooh, sorry.
Can't we just have a little peace and quiet once in a while?
Hey, it's your brain. I'm just stuck in here. Dee-doo-dee-doo-dee-doo-da-da-dee-doo-dee-dum.
Can you add some instructive commentary?
What? Oh, sure. As you can see here, I'm using about a 3/8 inch flat brush to apply for the letters now. And I'm also using a El Cheapo palette there. You can see that's just the top off of some butter container or something.
I don't really want to come back with a smaller brush, but
Wait a minute, I think that might be whipped cream.
it's going to help me get into this area since the fabric is causing some problems here.
Hey, I'm getting kind of hungry. We about done?
I hope so.
Clean this up, add a little more detail, and darken this.
There is a point at which you can overwork this and cause more problems than what you started with, but I kind of wanted an antique look to it anyway, so it didn't really have to be perfect. I wanted it to look like an old scroll.
Any small details that I couldn't do with the other brush because of the fabric weave, kind of clean them up.
So, basically, you're not listening to your own advice.
Well, it's not that I Yeah, pretty much.
That's a little cleaner.
Great. Corbin says it's ice cream time.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you heard him squeal for it.
Is that so?
Hey, he's drooling, isn't he?
All right, we're getting there.
As you can see here, I've got the O too close to the blessing. I end up making that larger overall, so this is a little too tight. So when I do it, I've got to move that down a little bit. So what I'm going to do is just kind of probably start and make sure I've got this kind of in the right area where I want it to go. Something like that. And again, I'll have to clean up those edges as I go, since it's not wanting to sink into the fabric. See, it's just dragging and it's just too dry. I'm gonna add a little bit of water to this. See if I can get this to flow a little bit more.
All right, here you can see the completed black lettering. I decided to go back and add a little pizzazz to the letters.
How do you spell that?
It's not important. At any rate, I wanted to make it look maybe like an old illuminated manuscript like you'd see in an old Bible. So I used originally the Sharpie gold marker, and that just wasn't quite bright enough, so I went back with this Deco Color kind of a paint. It's like a pigment paint marker, which worked really well.
Okay, so here's a close-up of the lettering, and I left the brown lines in there, kind of wanted like a Leonardo da Vinci type of sketch to leave that in there, just to give it some antique quality, and then adding a little bit of the gold on top of the black there. And then here we've got the edge just left rough here, and so I might even fray this a little bit more, but I like how it came out with the leather up in here. It wasn't quite stiff enough with this thick leather top. I was going to add another piece of leather here, but I decided to just go ahead and put this stick in there, so it kind of looks like a shepherd's staff or something stuck in there.
Shepherd's staff. Right.
But again, there's the finished product.
Hey, it's just kind of symbolic, just to get the feel of it.
All right. Looks good.
And a little signature at the end. I guess I need to date that. Yeah, I should date that. Oh, I did date it right here.
Just wanted to mention, I bought the leather strapping and that band of leather. It all came like in one package, like a bunch of scraps together. I think I got it at Hobby Lobby. And I just used a drill, just regular drill, to drill the holes so that I could put the leather binding through. And here's the completed banner on the wall in Corbin's new room.
Welcome to the family, buddy.
What are you saying, Corbin?
Oh, I could translate that. He's saying, hey, please comment, like, subscribe, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell button, do something. Get it done. Come on. I want to go to pizza. I want to go to Dairy Queen. I'm going to need some money here, folks. Come on, get with the program. Subscribe!
Wow, did you really say all that?